Today we're getting into something pretty wild, the psychology of wealth. It's this whole idea that your financial reality, it doesn't start in your bank account. Nope, it starts right up here, in your mind.
Yeah, let's just jump straight into it with that quote, right? You're not poor because of your situation. You're poor because of how you think. Now, that's a pretty bold statement, but the sources we're looking at today, they argue that for most of us, the biggest thing holding us back from wealth isn't our job, it's not our bills, it's our own mindset. And this kind of taps into what some people call the middle class mental script. It's that hidden pathway we all feel like we're supposed to follow, right? Go to school, land a good job, buy the house, and just hope for the best. It feels safe, it feels responsible. But what if that script, the one we're all following, is actually the trap? What if it's the very thing keeping people from real financial freedom? All right, so let's get into the first part of this. The core idea here is that your inner world literally, and I mean literally, creates your outer financial world. And the starting point for all of it, it's one incredibly powerful emotion. And that emotion is what's called a burning desire. What's so important here is the difference between this and just, wishing you had more money. That's not what this is about. A burning desire, as Napoleon Hill put it, is an all-consuming obsession. It's so intense that it becomes the only thing you think about, the one thing that drives every single action you take. Okay, so how do you actually do that? How do you take this big, abstract feeling and make it real? Well, the sources give us this really specific 6-step formula. And what's brilliant about it is that it forces you to stop vaguely wishing and start actually planning. You have to nail down the exact amount of money, what you'll give in return, a definite date, you get the picture. It's about being crystal clear on what you want, when you want it, and what you're willing to sacrifice to make it happen. And that level of commitment, wow. It's perfectly captured by this idea of burning the ships. Think about it. An army lands on an enemy shore, and their general orders them to burn their own ships. Why? Because now there's no retreat. There's no backup plan. It's win or perish. That's the mindset we're talking about, creating a situation where moving forward is your only possible option. So, you've got the burning desire, you've got the 6-step plan, you're all set, right? Well, not quite. According to these thinkers, that's just the beginning. The next, and maybe the most crucial step, is to actually program the most powerful part of your mind, your subconscious. The tool for this is something called auto-suggestion, and I love this analogy they use. Think of your subconscious mind like a rich, fertile garden. You can either be the gardener who carefully plants seeds of success and wealth, or you can just let it go and let all the weeds of fear and doubt and negativity take over. Auto-suggestion is just the tool you use to do that intentional planting. And here's how you actually put it into practice. This is the daily routine. The whole goal is to get that message, your desire, directly into your subconscious. So you find a quiet place, you repeat your written goals out loud, you literally see yourself already having the money. And this part is key. You have to mix those thoughts with real, powerful emotion and faith. Do that enough, and you start to actually rewrite your own internal programming. Okay, desire gets you started. Programming your subconscious gives you the fuel. But there's one last ingredient that decides whether you actually cross the finish line, and that is persistence. And this right here, this is the great dividing line. This is where most people fall off. On one side, you've got the Henry Fords and Thomas Edisons of the world, people who just refuse to quit, no matter how many times they failed. And on the other side, you have almost everyone else, who gives up at the first sign of a challenge. The sources are pretty clear about the symptoms of quitting. Having no real plan, always putting things off, and this is a big one, being terrified of what other people will think or say. All right, we've just laid out this incredible, powerful formula for success. That sounds amazing, right? But we have to stop and ask a really important question here. Is this philosophy genuinely the key to success? Or could it be a toxic myth? Let's flip the coin and look at the other side of this, because there are critics who argue that this intense, almost obsessive focus on mindset and wealth, well, it's not just a strategy, it's a whole belief system, and it might have a pretty serious dark side. And this really lays out the conflict perfectly. On one hand, the promise is total empowerment, right? Financial freedom. But the peril, the danger, is that it can lead to some really negative stuff. It can lead to blaming the victim, saying people are poor just because they didn't think right. It can create massive status anxiety. And maybe worst of all, It can make you tie your entire sense of self-worth to your net worth. This quote really gets to the heart of that critique. The idea is that when wealth becomes this thing we worship, it starts to push out other, more human values. Things like community, empathy, integrity. They get replaced by pure competition and personal branding. It's all about metrics, not connection. So, where does that leave us? We've got these two really powerful, totally conflicting ideas. One says your mind can make you rich. The other warns it's a psychological trap. Let's try to pull all this together and figure out what it means for us. There's this fantastic concept from one of the sources called a money blueprint. Basically, it's the internal program about money that we all inherit from our childhood and our culture without even realizing it. And maybe that's the real takeaway here. Maybe the power isn't in some magic 6-step formula, but simply in becoming aware of the blueprint you're currently running. What are those deep, unconscious beliefs you have about money, about success, about what you deserve? So in the end, it doesn't really matter if you think this whole philosophy is a tool for empowerment or a toxic myth. Either way, it points to one undeniable truth. We are all operating on powerful mental scripts. So the real question isn't if you have a script about money and success, because you do. The real question is, who's writing yours?